On to the running back unit. Garrett, who is your guy?
Let me talk about my guy, Brees Hall, baby.
Oh, come
Brees
on, bro. This
Lightning.
is such a fucking square pick. The Jets fan picks the RB2 from last year, who had one carry inside the 5.
It's my
and
guy.
Aaron Rodgers back. Such a square pick out of you.
Keep coming. I want to stamp my name on him being the number one fantasy player this year. That's why he's my guy.
Take, bro. He was the RB2 last year.
I'm talking number one, not just running backs. Let me take him over Cheetah.
Overall player.
He's a guy I consider taking number one in my draft over CMC. Yeah. So he's my guy. I mean, he hit 1,500 yards all purpose last year, and obviously, like you said, Rodgers coming back. I mean, weeks 5 through 8 5 through 18. Keep in mind, after Hackett said after week 5 is when he realized that Brees Hall is a good receiving back. And he averaged 20 touches a game and 102 yards per game. He's a moron.
He just
so like the first couple games of the season, he admitted it, and all the fans were like, well, "What the hell is wrong with this guy?"
Well,
so I think he's going to be used even more as a pass catcher this year. Huge PPR value, and like I said, I'd honestly consider taking him one of one. I don't care. He's my guy. Colin, stay hating.
It's a square pick, but I love Brees Hall too.
It is a square pick, but you are saying he's going to be the number one overall fantasy player, not just saying the number one running back. So I'll give you that aspect. If you're putting your money where your mouth is, taking him. If you have the 101 and you're taking him at the 1, good for you.
Yeah, it's better.
My guy is Zamir White. I am expecting massive things out of him. I am buying into that. Okay, well,
terrible pick. Awful.
Cool on that. I'm buying into the last 4 games, dude. I mean, 397 yards over his last 4 games, averaging 4.7 yards per carry. He had 1 touchdown during that, 13 targets. I mean, the competition there's not much. I mean, unless you're worried about Alexander Madison. How did that work out in Minnesota? He ain't out there anymore. Amir Abdullah. How did that work out for you in Minnesota? He ain't there anymore. And then they took a 6th-round pick on Dylan Lalby. Yeah, he's a guy I would take in best ball just in case, just because, I highlighted it earlier. But for redraft and the season, I'm not worried about him. But W is only real competition. I mean, Antonio Pierce loves to run the ball. This guy was way more efficient than Josh Jacobs. I mean, we talked about it in the AFC West. It was 4.5 yards carry to the 3.7 that Jacobs was averaging. So clearly the better guy. And he only had the full workload for that 4-game sample size. But the fact that he had 84 carries within that 4-game span, I mean, I think any game that is a good game strip or they can win is going to be huge. And honestly, Gardner Minshew at quarterback makes me love it even more because I didn't have a lot of hope with Aiden O'Connell. So if Minshew can actually keep this team relevant and in games, get and move the ball a lot more, which I fully expect he will be able to do versus Aiden O'Connell, didn't have faith in him. So that's my guy. I'm expecting a big year. And guess what? He's a mid-6th round guy, so you can get him late. You're not putting big capital on him, and he's going to return with that top 12 fantasy finish this year. So draft him. Thank me later.
Dude, I just don't like that at all because Zamir White is so game script dependent. They have to be winning, and that's a bad team.
Bro, did you not see the?
He does not have PPR upside, and although he did tie the league lead in carries over the last 4 weeks, I get it. He did look pretty good, but with the no PPR upside. And a team that's not going to score a lot of points and a team that's going to be trailing a lot. I don't know. Top 12 seems a little ambitious. And it's funny because you shit
photo.
on what?
Did you not see the photo trending of him all jacked up?
Yeah. Oh, I saw it. And on Twitter, it's like
be good.
Training camp photo of a running back being jacked, automatically shoots up fucking draft boards.
On my board, yeah, bro. I mean, he could definitely bench more than me. So I'm bought in.
It's actually so funny you just shit on Josh Jacobs because my guy is Josh Jacobs. I'm predicting a huge bounce back season in this loaded Green Bay offense, an offense that will score a lot of points, an offense that is one of the top 10, potentially top 5 in the entire league. Green Bay has a very good offensive line. I think he just got worn down in Vegas. I think the losing caught up to him. I think coming off of 400 touches the year prior got to him. So hopefully he's fresh coming into the season. He got paid good money. He got paid starter money, $12 million a year. So he's going to get a big bulk of the workload. I'm not worried about Marshawn Lloyd yet. And A.J. Dillon, the dude should be honestly not on an NFL roster, but That's neither here nor there. Predicting a huge bounce back season from Josh Jacobs. Let's not forget he led the league in rushing 2 years ago. Is now in a better offense with a better offensive line and with a great play caller in Matt LaFleur. So I'm pumped for Josh Jacobs this year at RB15. Love him as my RB2.
Yeah, I mean, that's funny, dude. You're just going to shit on my guy and the guy who was way more efficient than Josh Jacobs.
Hey, no, I know he was more efficient last year. I know. Okay, I'm betting on this year. Do you want to make a friendly wager? Who finishes as the higher running back, Josh Jacobs or Zamir White?
I'm not putting money on it. I'll do.
You don't have to put money on it. Let's just put a pin in this.
Let's do a punishment. Come on, let's do a.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it off pod, but let's put a pin in this. I got Jacobs finishing higher. You got Zamir White. We'll figure something out.
Any punishment. I'll do anything. You run around naked in Hoboken. I'll shake on it right now.
There we go.
Yeah, dude.
Go up and I don't know. Go do anything. Loser can't watch a Yankee game for all of 2025.
Oh, that's just why would we do that? That's just terrible, dude. That's just torture. That's too far. The punishments. All right,
Garrett, you're confident in Josh Jacobs.
I am very confident, but that one's too far. Your do not draft for the running backs, Garrett.
My do not draft is Ramondre Stevenson coming in as running back 20 right now.
I like Ramondre this year.
I do not. He finished as running back 33 last year. He's looking at the 24th hardest strength of schedule. I mean, some stats I found, he weeks 1 through 80 ranked 33rd in missed tackles, 38 in yards after contact. So he wasn't really making guys miss. He wasn't really running people over like he's known for. I don't trust the offense a lot. I don't, at least running the ball wise, like they're going to be trailing in games, especially when Drake May comes in and doesn't hit his ceiling or like really get the offense going. There was a lot of picks. They're going to be trailing a lot. Not a lot of rushing ops. I mean, he only had 4 touchdowns last year, which I don't love for a running back. I think he'll lose a lot of his receiving upside with Antonio Gibson coming in. He's not a guy I would be excited to draft or be taking myself.
I don't love Ramondre, but I mean, he was RB7 just 2 years ago. The offense is absolutely terrible, but when he finished his RB7, he had 69 receptions, for one, and he had a touchdown through the air. So he did have nearly 70 catches, and if they are playing from behind, I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of opportunities for checkdowns with teams kind of sagging off in coverage a little bit. But I agree with you, though, that offense is not going to score points.
If he's not going to be a 3-down back
in the league, it's going to be the worst offense in the league most likely. Let's be honest. So I get that.
Yeah, no, it probably will be the worst offense, but I'm probably trying to stay away from that. I mean, especially because you don't know what Antonio Gibson's involvement was, and then when Zeke came in, once Ramondre went down, Zeke even looked better. And at this point, a lot of people
think
Zeke's
ADP, Garrett?
Running back 20.
Yeah.
People are still taking him to be like a flex.
That's a little rich. I don't want him in my starting lineup, even though he is technically in my starting lineup right now in one league, but it's because we're waiting for guys to get back healthy. But I mean, I don't know. If he slides, I'd pounce on him like a round or two after his ADP, but not a guy.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that.
Well, yeah, and that's with everybody. Like the guy I'm about to say, Jahmyr Gibbs is a guy I'm not drafting at his current ADP as the running back 6. He's going in the middle of the second right now, so it's a little too rich for me for a guy who's going to be in a timeshare, even though the Lions offense will be crazy overpowered. But last year, he was out carried by Montgomery. Montgomery had 40 more carries than Gibbs. I mean, they both had double-digit touchdowns, which you love. But if I'm drafting a guy at that point, I want a 3-down back, the bell cow, versus like Kyron is going to be the 3-down bell cow guy, where Gibbs, he's going to be in the timeshare. David Montgomery is not going away. As much as people want to say he's going away, he's not. He was way too efficient last year and way too good for them to just not give him a role. I think even if it becomes a 60-40, Montgomery's still going to get all the goal line work. Most of Gibbs' touchdowns were big runs, like 10, 15 yards out, where Montgomery, when they get down to the 2-3 yard line, they're not putting in Gibbs, they're putting in Montgomery. I also do think with Gibbs' hamstring injury, it scares me a little bit because if he re-injures it, then they'll hold him out and put him in bubble wrap almost, because this is a team with Super Bowl aspirations. So they're never going to rush him back from injuries because they know they have David Montgomery who can get the job done. And even Craig Reynolds, I mean, he showed flashes last year, so they know they got enough guys where they don't need to do it. So that's a little too rich for me, and it'll be funny when we get into my value pick next.
So was your value pick Travis Etienne after you said you would keep Gibbs earlier and trade Etienne?
No, it's going to be Dave Montgomery, but I'll get into that.
Okay, yeah. So you value Gibbs over Etienne, but you wouldn't draft Gibbs. Does that mean you would also not draft Etienne?
Gibbs I value higher. Obviously, Gibbs is going to be better than Etienne for fantasy, but at the ADPs, I would rather Etienne at his than Gibbs at his.
How farther back is Etienne than Gibbs? Just curious.
Not that far. I mean, Etienne's going as like a late second.
Is he? No. Then hold on. I gotta check this out.
Hold on.
I got RB's a super early.
Gibbs is RB6. Etienne is RB10.
Yeah, but what's the ADP? Because
I
that's
don't know the ADP.
Okay.
I've been in mocks. I haven't seen him go late second, early third.
But that's what I'm saying. I'd rather take Etienne in the late third than who's
the
guy.
Third.
Who's the guy versus the other guy? I don't know. I mean, let me look this up while somebody else go on your.
All right. I'll give my do not draft. It is Alvin Kamara at RB11. We've seen his productions really start to slide the last couple years after he was RB1 overall back in 2020. His yards per carry have dropped. He was nearly 5 yards per carry. In 2020, it's dropped to 3.74, 4.02, and 3.86. The touchdown numbers have been on the decline. He's getting up there in age. He's 29 years old now. That's really tough for a running back to be an RB1. He was exactly on the dot in full point PPR, RB11 last year. That was after an RB16 finish the year prior. So for me, I think Kamara is on the decline. Not a guy I want to invest my draft capital in that high at RB11. I mean, he's still solid for PPR purposes, but at that ADP, I'd stay away. He also just lacks the explosive ability that made him so great in the breaking tackle ability, which is just clearly on the decline. So for me in that offense, I know that your boy Derek Carr is leading the charge, Reagan, but not something I love. Although I will say in Kamara's, like something that's going for him to play the opposite side of the coin, Dennis Allen shit on Kendre Miller again in the press conference today, saying, I don't know, haven't seen the guy. I don't know if he could pick up the scheme because he pulled his hammy the first practice. I don't know. It's just Dennis Allen's favorite thing is to shit on Kendre Miller, who they drafted last year in the 3rd round. So he doesn't have a ton of competition there because Jamal Williams was just one of the worst backs in the league last year after leaving Detroit. But just that offense in general and Kamara on the decline in his age, I'm not drafting Kamara at RB11.
Yeah, that's fair. And I'm not taking Kamara either. I think he's completely cooked.
He's a big target. He's a big target for the guys who go like wide receiver in the first 2 rounds, even like first 3. Like there's people that go really wide receiver heavy, and he's like their steal because he's one of the only like considered top guys left.
Yeah, and he's RB11. And if I see a team that's RB11, I'm like, all right, I'm not worried about you in the playoffs. If he's your QB1, I mean your RB1, I mean
it's brutal.
Yeah, I'm not worried. All right, value pick, G. Who do you got for the running backs?
My value pick is Brian Robinson Jr. from the Commanders. He's coming in as running back 35, which is crazy to me. Finished as running back 21 last year. I mean, I found a stat for him that was he was running back 14 in fantasy points per opportunity. So when he was getting his touches, he was actually very productive. I mean, he's got the mobile quarterback now in Jaden Daniels, which I think will help a lot. That read option is going to help free him up because Jaden Daniels is going to be a real threat on his feet. So I think it does really help him. I mean, I don't really fear Austin Eckler much. I think he's kind of washed. We already really know what he is, and we just saw him decline last year. Where I don't see him taking much of the work from him. I mean, he offers a big receiving upside. I mean, he ranked 5th in yards per route run last year. He had a game where he had 120 receiving yards on a touchdown against Seattle. And he averaged 15.5 touches. So I think that could even go up. I mean, I like him, especially that late where you could get him. So he's my value pick.
Yeah, I like Robinson. I mean, he had 368 receiving yards. Granted, 120 was against Seattle, but 4 receiving touchdowns. Eckler's going to eat more so into that workload, but he averaged over 4 yards per carry and 5 touchdowns last year with 733 on the ground. And that is not going to go away. Eckler is just not good between the tackles, and Brian Robinson is good between the tackles. So I like that pick.
Yeah. I got Zeke I love this pick.
Oh, I saw this one coming.
We know.
There's not many starting running backs you can get in the late 8th, early 9th. And this guy is going to get a big workload. He had 950 total yards last year, 51 catches. So for an 8th, 9th round pick, that's not bad at all. 5 touchdowns on top of that. I mean, his competition's Rico Dowdle, Royce Freeman. I mean, Royce Freeman's a guy that's bounced around a lot. I think Dowdle will be involved, but I think Zeke's going to be the main guy in a high-powered offense. He's going to have a lot of red zone opportunities. His last season with Dallas, which was only 2 years ago, he was just shy of 1,000 yards, but at 12 touchdowns. A 12-touchdown guy in the 8th, 9th round does not come around a lot. So I love the value there. So with this high-powered offense, I see him as a potential top 24 running back, if not a top 15 guy ceiling. I mean, he's a guy who can get double-digit touchdowns with over 250 touches between the receiving work and the carries. So I really do think it's a value here. I think he showed enough last year that he's not totally cooked, and he's a very durable guy. I mean, Zeke's been one of the most healthy running backs ever. He really hasn't had any major injuries. I mean, 2 years ago, he had that knee injury that hampered him, but he didn't miss time. I mean, he kept playing every week, so the value's great there for me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind that one. I got Raheem Mostert at RB 33. The guy tied for league lead with 21 touchdowns last year. How is that an ill? He's RB 33. 21 touchdowns last year.
Too injury prone for me, but I'll hear you out.
He played 15 games last year.
Yeah, last year, but think about his time with the Niners.
He played 16 games the year before. Yeah, he had the injury concerns with the Niners, but so does Devon Achane. He also has injury concerns.
I'll hear you out.
It's the same high-powered offense. They scored a shit ton of points last year. Why would they switch up their formula of Mostert and Achane working together? At RB 33, I'll take Mostert with all those touchdowns and getting the work inside the 10-yard line. Why not? I mean, if you're taking him that late and he's your RB 3 or 4, that's a lot of upside.
No, I'll give you that. And
he's not going to score 20 touchdowns.
Drafted him last year.
I'm not saying he's going to score 20 touchdowns, but I think he's going to score at least 10. He's still going to get a good majority of the workload. He had 209 carries last year. Why can't he do that again? He ran for over 1,000 yards. I don't know. I think Raheem Mostert, RB 33, is just really deep, and it's worth a shot.
No, it is good value. I'll give you that.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Yeah, I mean, for the value, it's definitely – I mean, he could still be the starting running back. He's kind of similar to the Gibbs and Montgomery. Oh, fuck. Did I say – oh, shit. Montgomery was my value pick. Zeke was my sleeper. All right, well,
okay. So you said your sleeper already is Zeke. Explain why Montgomery is your value.
I'm sorry. I'm an idiot, everyone, but my value is David Montgomery.
Apologize for my idiotic co-host. I apologize.
Fuck. Yeah, I got him going. He's the RB 21. He's going in the late 5th, early 6th. I mean, he's a guy who had 219 carries last year for over 1,000 yards, plus 16 catches. I mean, you'd love to see more receiving work, but I mean, Gibbs is just more talented. And that was in 14 games last year. He also had 13 touchdowns, which you love to see. And he finished as the RB6 in points per game at 13.7. So the RB6 on a point per game basis going at 21, and an RB12 in total points going at the running back 21. I think a lot of people are expecting him to lose the role and be more of a complimentary back, but I think it's going to be a 50-50 timeshare. So I think that is amazing value there. And if Gibbs misses any time, I mean, this guy is going to be top 5 fantasy running back going forward. I mean, the same goes for Gibbs if Montgomery misses time as well. It's just one guy is going at mid-second round. The other guy is going early to late or early 6th round. So, the value there is a little different if one guy misses time. If Montgomery is to miss time, Gibbs is just basically hitting the ceiling of what he was drafted to be.
I like that pick. Garrett, who's your sleeper?
I like it too. Also, he's just a Dan Campbell guy. Like, no matter how good Gibbs will do this year, we're going to see a lot of Montgomery regardless. Like, he's a guy that they'll just force feed on the goal line too.
Well, and they're not dumb. I mean, they're a team that's expecting to be in the Super Bowl. So add another 3-4 playoff games right there. They're not going to run either guy into the ground. Both guys are going to be heavily involved. It's going to be a long season. They're expecting to play 19 or 20 games this season.
Yeah. All right. My sleeper running back, Gus Edwards, running back 39 right now. He's in LA now. back with his old OC, Greg Roman, a guy who loves to run the ball, run first guy. And I really honestly, it's hard to love Gus Edwards at his age, but what really sells it for me is I just love their O-line. I think it's going to be so powerful. And he had 13 rushing touchdowns last year in a similar offense with Baltimore, fourth most out of players last year. Even if Dobbins is involved, I don't see him taking the goal line reps from him. A guy I want to keep my eye on though is the 6th-round rookie Kamani Vidal. I don't know if you guys have been hearing about him, but he's been cooking in preseason.
Yeah,
coming out of Troy, he ran for 1,600 yards last season in college, which is insane.
Second most.
He's a guy that Dobbins doesn't worry me as much as Vidal would, but even then, I still think Gus will be the goal line guy and can pop for have games where he has 2 touchdowns, and then that's going to be a great fantasy game right there.
I love that pick. Gus was huge for me in the flex spots last year. Granted, he's very touchdown dependent because he doesn't have the PPR upside, but if he scores, you're getting a solid 15 from your flex play. It's pretty solid. Good plug-in for bye weeks as well.
They're going to run this guy into the dirt too.
Yeah, when they were together,
he's on a 1-year deal.
Yeah, he's on a 1-year deal. And when Harbaugh and Roman were together in San Francisco, they ran the ball at top 3 rate in the league every year as well. So Gus will certainly get his work. My sleeper, Jonathan Brooks, RB32. A lot of people aren't talking about him because he's coming off the knee injury. He's probably going to miss the first couple weeks of the season, but he was the first running back taken this year, although it wasn't the biggest pressing need for the Carolina Panthers. They clearly thought highly enough of him as a prospect to make the pick really early in the 2nd round. He should be back within the first month or so. So if you're taking him, that RB32, you're fine letting him sit for a couple weeks before bye weeks even kick in. He has the tools to be a 3-down back. He does create big plays. I don't trust Miles Sanders. He fell out of the picture last year to Chuba Hubbard, but before that, Chuba Hubbard kind of fell out of the picture with the prior regime. And we know what Chuba Hubbard is at this point of his career. Neither one of them was taken by this regime. Jonathan Brooks was, when they didn't need to necessarily take a running back. So I think Jonathan Brooks, especially if Bryce Young becomes a top 12 fantasy quarterback, like Reagan's saying, Jonathan Brooks will be a part of that offense. And I think at RB32, a big sleeper could potentially be a league winner.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. And I think he's a guy he's gonna fall. He's gonna miss the first couple games. Sounds like he's definitely not going to be ready week 1. So definitely a guy that you can get good value on just by waiting, throwing him in your IR spot. So love it.
Best ball sleeper, G.
All right. My best ball sleeper, Jalen Wright, rookie. Coming in running back 47. This is part of the reason why I poo-pooed your Mostert pick. Because I you like his health. I don't trust Mostert to stay healthy. A-Chain's also a guy with not a big, strong frame who I'm not going to say he's going to get injured, but he's not a big, strong guy like Jalen Wright is. They clearly drafted him to have a role in this offense. He's got 4.38 speed, which something Mike McDaniels is probably so excited to get his hands on. He fits perfectly in. Yeah, exactly. He fits perfectly into the zone run scheme. They picked him knowing that he might not get a lot of work this year, but even I'm just gonna be super high on this guy next year. If Mostert's gone, with him and A-Chain are gonna be a 1-2 punch. So maybe he's not the best value this year, but I really like his potential, and I think in best ball, if he's one of the late guys you get and end of the year, if someone does get hurt, we could see this guy have a big upside game. So we'll see.
I like it. If you take A-Chan in best ball, I wouldn't mind taking
a handy
Wright as that handcuff late because Wright is going to step into that role and has that big playability as well with the speed. So I like that handcuff in best ball as well.
Yeah.
All right. So for my best ball sleeper, I went with Jaleel McLaughlin, the Broncos running back. Right now, he's going as the RB49, but the Broncos backfield is wide open. We expect Javonte or Pirine, one of them, to be cut. And obviously they took Audric Estime. That's how you pronounce it, correct?
Estime.
But he's, with all that being said, none of it worries me. The guy had averaged 5.4 yards per carry last year, and in 107 touches, he had 570 yards. So 31 catches, so I expect him to be the third down back. He had 6 touchdowns too, and on top of that, which makes it also nice for best ball, he finished as the RB10 and the RB8 in 2 of the weeks. And guess what? 33% snap usage in those weeks. So if this guy's snap percentages, which never eclipsed anything higher than 40%, can get up to that 50-60 range in a week, the sky's the limit. So I'm super excited. He can clearly be one of your 2 top running backs in any given week. We've seen it before on low snap percentage. So I just think it's worth the dart throw, and it's a huge value in best ball. So watch out for him.
I actually love that one, Reagan, especially because he has a different skill set from the other 3 backs in the room. So he's a lock to make the roster, where you can't say the same about P. Ryan or Javonte Williams. Love that pick. I went with Trey Benson. James Conner was really good last year, and James Conner just seems to heat up when the fantasy playoffs come around, but he's also dealt with injuries, it seems, every year, just nagging injuries. He doesn't miss a ton of time, but he does miss a couple games every year. So if you get towards the end of the season with an improved offense with Kyler Murray back and healthy, they've invested in the offensive line with Marv out wide. I think Trey Benson, even in a redraft league, is a must start if James Conner's out. I think if you got Benson at your flex, you're feeling pretty good. And he was a dog at Florida State. So for me, towards the end of the season, James Conner getting up there in age, 29 years old. If he does have injuries, Trey Benson could be a big play.
I love that.
I don't hate that at all.
Reagan, I want to ask you unbiased. Who would you rather have in a dynasty league, Trey Benson or Jonathan Brooks?
Bro, I just had the same. I was sitting there on the clock in my draft, and I was like, shit, which one do I want? And it was more like, if I don't take Brooks now, because Brooks is ranked higher, if I don't take Brooks now, I can take a receiver and wait a couple picks and get Benson. I ultimately took Brooks.
Yeah, and I took Benson right after Colin. That's why
that was a great response, Reagan. That was a really good response, Reagan.
I know he asked you, Reagan, but I wanted to add that in before you answered.
You wanted to cover it up.
I would say Brooks, just because of the talents there and the fact that he has the clearer path early on. And then we don't know like what the Cardinals' future is. I mean, we don't know for certain if Kyler Murray is going to be there long term. So I can see the Cardinals going into another rebuild if it doesn't work out this year and they have to get away from Kyler.
But the Panthers do the same thing.
Yeah,
Panthers could. The Panthers could. But I have more hope for that situation because they went out and made all these moves, and Bryce Young's only 1 year in. I mean, listen, I just feel like too many people are writing him off, and I like the fact that Jonathan Brooks is guaranteed the role right away. But I don't think you can go wrong with either guy. I really do think both guys will end up being good for fantasy one day. I just don't know how long it's going to take Benson to fully get that workload. I don't know if it'll be in year 1. Where Brooks, it seems like it's his job. It's just whenever he gets healthy, it'll be his.
Great announcement.